From the Empire State to the Golden Gates, this is Quad Radio USA.
Oh, yeah.
Now, with all the dirt from the world of ATV motocross and GNCC racing, here's Mr. 10 Seconds, Rodney Tomlin.
And a good afternoon to you, everyone, as we welcome you to the worldwide Globecast of QuadRadio.com and, of course, a Two-Wheel Tuesday. It's Deuce Day here in Quad Radio USA as we speak with none other than the reigning and newly crowned GNCC XC2 Pro Lights Class Champion, UK7, Jason Thomas, coming up here in just a couple of moments. First and foremost, do want to say thanks to a few folks that helped make it all possible. Of course, our friends at Impact Solutions, your factory-authorized service center for Alco Suspension over at 985 Harris Highway in Parkersburg, West Virginia, 304-863-0025, or simply impactsolutions.com. Actually, that's impactsolutionsatv.com on the World Wide Web, and Impact Solutions on Facebook. As well, I want to say thanks to our friends at SSI Decals, as they are the folks that provide us with great stickers and the banners and great marketing tools. So we say thanks to those folks. And we welcome the 2012 GNCC XC2 Pro Lights Class Champion, Mr. Jason Thomas. Good afternoon, Jason, and welcome to Quad Radio, man. I know it sounds kind of funny to be on Quad Radio, but nonetheless, here you are, brother.
Yeah, how's it going, Rodney? It's cool that you're doing the two-wheel thing, and I'm excited to be on it.
Well, I'm glad that you are on it, and I know that I mentioned it to you right after the championship. You told me that you would do it. I mentioned it on Facebook there last week, and you're like, "All right, bud, let's make this thing happen." That's exactly what we're doing here today. But I guess my first question right now is, what's going on in Jason Thomas's world after capturing that number one plate, man, that you've been working so hard on over the past few years here in American GNCC racing?
Yeah, right now just taking a break from riding. I don't actually have any bikes. I had to give the bikes back to the dealership that gave them to me. So no bikes at the moment, no riding. Just working on a couple of things around here at the KR4 shop. Rebuilding some bikes and getting them ready to sell. And just trying to make a buck.
There you go. Living the American dream, huh?
Yeah, something like that.
That's for sure, man. And speaking of dreams, man, I mean, you have lived a dream, and sometimes I would imagine it's probably turned into a nightmare at times. But, if you want something bad enough, sometimes you've got to put your head down, you've got to work, and you've got to make a lot of sacrifices. And I think that's probably what this number one plate represents as much as anything, man. I mean, congratulations again on the championship and being the first ever U.S.-born citizen to win the national title there in that particular class, man. I think that's a pretty good little historical note for you. Yeah,
thank you for that. Yeah, it's been a long journey, like you said. I sacrificed a lot of things, and sometimes it seems like it's been a nightmare more than a dream. But as bad as them days are, I kind of look at other people's lives and realize at the end of the day, I'm still racing a dirt bike for a living, so it really isn't that bad. It could be a lot worse. I could be working out there, working construction or something really tedious. So, as bad as it gets, it really isn't that bad, and I always look on them things, and I'm grateful for what I've been able to do and finally to achieve a goal. A lifetime dream is incredible. There's a lot of people to help me along the way, and a lot of people that believed in me that are there now, and some people that didn't believe in me who aren't there, and that's just part of life. And I'm looking forward to my next challenge.
What is your next challenge, I guess, before we you bring it up right here, right now, and before we go into the season, this past season, and talk a little bit more about Jason Thomas, what is it?
Well, I mean, at the moment, it's tough to really set the goal of winning the next C1 title, but I mean, I guess the next big stepping stone would be to go on and win an XC1 title. and before that some races. But before that, I mean, the way it is at the moment, I have to look at what I can do and how I'm going to make money, because at the end of the day, if I can't make money doing it, then I'm not able to do it. So it looks like the sponsors are all in agreement that I'll stay and defend the championship for one more year, and in the hope that, you know, things turn around and I'm able to move on to an XC1 ride the year after. So I mean, going into next year, XC2, going back onto a 4-stroke, feel more comfortable on the 4-stroke. So, you know, hopefully going back onto a 250F riding a 4-stroke, and just try and keep improving, focus more on the overall, like I did the second half of this year, and you know, it's looking like it's going to be good. Andrew DeLong is staying in there, sounds like. So, you know, going to be a good time with him. It doesn't sound like there's going to be anyone there on a 2-stroke, so there's not really any need for me to be on that. I definitely won't be at a disadvantage riding a 250F against Andrew on the 250F. And I think that the two of us together in that class, we can learn a lot from each other, and you know, it's going to put us in an even better position moving up to the XC1 class the year after.
Yeah, and some competition coming in the XC2 class with a few riders moving up, too. So this ought to be a pretty good, interesting 2013 season coming up, a good championship defending year for you.
Yeah, you know, like, you know, the XC2 class, it doesn't matter. You know, I've always said in the past, you know, there's this guy to beat and there's that guy to beat, and then all of a sudden there's two other guys to beat that came from nowhere. So I'm sure it's not going to be any different next year. That's one of the things that, for me, kept the class exciting and always a challenge. And, you know, I'm sure defending the championship isn't going to be easy. It's not something I'm taking lightly and slacking off and saying, oh, I've won it once and I can come in and I can win it again. I think it's probably going to be really difficult to defend it. But I'm looking forward to that. You know, it's not. I wouldn't want to win every single race. So I like the challenge, and I like that other people can run the same pace, and I'm not running away with it. And hopefully next year it's going to be a year-long battle with somebody, or, you know, a couple of people.
Yeah, it keeps you sharp and keeps you on the edge. That's for sure, and keeps it keeps the ship tight, I think, whenever you've got that competition out there. And Jason, I guess now's as good a time as any to start talk about this championship season. You know, you talked about next year. Defending the number one plate is not going to be easy, and we've always heard that defending the number one title is harder than getting the number one plate. The thing is, you look back over the history of this 2013 or 2012 season itself. I mean, even all the seasons leading up to it, but we just take this one particular season right now and take a look at it. Man, this particular championship was not an easy one to win. You had a lot of obstacles to overcome this season, and I mean, you stuck through it, man. You put your head down, stayed consistent, and when the chips were down at their worst, you still were able to shine through. And whenever it wasn't as bright as you wanted to shine, you shined enough to do exactly what you did and win the championship.
Yeah, I can't imagine a championship being any more difficult than it has been this year. And if it was, I can't honestly say that I would stick it out because this year has been a roller coaster. It really has not been a good year. I mean, it ended on a good note, but as far as the rest of the year goes, it's probably one of the worst years I've had ever on so many different levels. You know. At a quarter of the way into the year, I just felt like I wasn't in a good place, you know, physically, mentally, and I've said it on so many interviews. I just was in a really bad place, and I turned it around. You know, I kept plugging away, and I had people around me who supported me and picked me back up at a time when, you know, the first time in my life when I didn't feel like I was able to pick myself up. Other people stepped in and helped me get back to where I needed to be. And then, you know, a little break there in the summer or towards the end of the year when I went to 6 days and was able to spend some time with old friends and people from my own country and, you know, ex-world champions like Paul Edmondson, really gave me a whole nother boost. And I came back and obviously won Sinclairsville, but came back with a completely different mindset after 6 days. And it paid off for me. It's kind of like I went to 6 days and really matured. figured some things out and came back a completely different rider, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. I honestly think so. I mean, I was impressed with the struggles that you had this year, how well you were doing anyway, and then after you came back, you're right, you were a different person. Your attitude, it was as if there was a lot of stress that had gotten lifted off your shoulders, Jason. I think that little taste of home might have been just exactly what you were needing.
Yeah, I think so for sure. It's been 2 years since I was able to go home. So, I mean, that wasn't home, it was Germany. But I was around people who were from home, so
Right.
I kind of, got a ton of stories about what was going on at home and kind of got a feel for what was going on at home. And like you said, I think it just gave me a whole nother boost, and I was able to come back after 6 days. It really didn't ride well at 6 days, but kind of took it for what it was. It was a difficult event, and it was a lot of time on the bike. So the physical part of it, I really gained there, and then the technical part of it, I felt like, riding at 6 days, you don't have the pressure of a GNCC where you're riding for 3 hours. Sometimes at a GNCC, you don't learn anything. It just seems like it's wide open from the beginning and to the checkers. And 6 days, some of the sections I could, kind of use different lines and do different stuff. And I think I really learned a lot and came back and transferred it to the GNCCs.
Yeah, and a good job of that. And I got to say, I mean, you mentioned it. You said a roller coaster year, I think, earlier in the first part of this interview, and I think you're right, man. I mean, this was it started off a great year. I mean, you got married, and you were beginning a whole new life in basically a whole new country. I mean, I know you'd been here for a while at that point, but still. You were married, and you just gotten married, and that's something to be all happy about, man. I mean, being a newlywed is nice, but at the same time, there are a lot of stresses that come along with that, on top of trying to race motorcycles.
Yeah, for sure. I've been with my wife for a fair few years, and it was. I guess I didn't really think marriage was really going to change my life all that much, but it really did. And like you said, there's so many struggles that come along after you get married that you don't even think about. Financial struggles and just figuring a lot of things out. And then to have the situation I did quarter of the way in, where we basically pretty much had to move house, had to relocate. Really, threw a curveball in there and changed everything for both, myself and my wife. She had to move away from her family for the first time, which, I kind of don't really, it doesn't really affect me anymore so much, but, I know where understand what she was feeling moving away from her family, even though it was only 2 hours away. It was a big change, and it really was a big change in both of our lives, and we had to get over that at the same time as trying to go out and win races and stay consistent enough to win a championship. But we were able to do, like I said, there were times when I was down and didn't feel like I was able to pick myself up, and Lacey picked me up, and I'm sure she was down and I was able to pick her up at times, and that's what marriage is all about. And, that was just another lesson in life that I had to learn at the same time as trying to battle for a championship. That some of these kids, they're just things they don't have to think about, making money to pay the bills, isn't just not something they have to think about, and supporting someone else isn't something they don't have to think about. And I guess there's times during the race when I think about them things, and don't do something crazy, and it ended up paying off for me. Then both them kids had, Andrew and Stu both had injuries this year, injuries that I really couldn't afford to have. So there might have been times when I backed it down a little bit, and just rode the way I knew I could ride. And it paid off in the end. I was able to win it because I didn't have any injuries, I would say.
Wow. That's a very good point. And you look back, and that's a pretty good tale of the tape, too. You know what I mean? That's good. And I got to commend you, man. I mean, to be able to do what you did a third of the way through the season, basically, having to switch bike brands, bike teams, build up basically a brand new program from scratch right in the middle of the season. I mean, or right in the first third of the season. That right there was not an easy task at all.
No, it was incredibly difficult, and it really wasn't something that I don't think anybody thought that I could do it other than me, and I just did it out of pure, because people said I couldn't do it. It really was nothing else. I guess I did it because I wanted to prove a point, and I've always been someone that rode better or performed better when I needed to prove a point, and when the chips were down, I came to America, on a down note, and was able to win a race and get to where I've gotten to. And it always seems that when stuff doesn't go for me, I turn it around and make it go my way. And I think that's something that it transfers into everything. And like when there's races when I'm down and I'm stuck, or I'm at the back of the pack, and I always seem to be able to find something inside me to pick me back up and pass people and get back to where I need to be. And like I said, I think has a lot to do with the fact that in the back of my mind I have bills to pay come the end of the month, and if I don't get back up there, then I'm not able to pay them. And that wasn't really something that has always been the case. When I first came over and started racing in America, it was just because I wanted to win, and now it's I want to win, and I have bills to pay, so it's even more determination than before, I think.
Yep, for sure. And another thing that I think stands out over the course of the last few years, you were an individual that I've always admired, and I've always liked you. You've always been that kind of wild, crazy dude at one point, and then you've always been serious. And the one thing that I think that's shown through more than anything, especially this year, when you put it all together, is the character that you showed. I mean, you showed that you have got so much character, and even in this interview, I think the character that you are presenting is just above board, man. I mean, because there's a lot of shots you could take that you choose not to take, and I think that has a lot to do with your upbringing, man. I mean, your dad coming over, I think, was a good thing for you whenever the end of the season. I mean, here you were in a position, you'd gone through all the struggles all season, and you were a newfound Jason Thomas, basically. And, Dad, he's got some time off. He's got a little extra time he can spend. He says, I'm going over. And basically, man, he comes over, and you guys spend a lot of time together. And I think that probably was one of the best things that could have happened this year to help bring it all together for you.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because in the past when my dad's come over, I've usually ended up going out a couple of days before and breaking myself into two pieces. So it hasn't always been the case that my dad coming to America and watching me race has turned out for the best. But I think that I believe everything happens for a reason, and I believe that he was able to come and see me win a championship, and because it was meant to be. We started out, and the same for my best friend. I don't know if people saw, but the kid who was my mechanic when I came over all them years ago for Yadkinville and won, was actually racing at Loretta Lynn's in the XC2 class, and came over the line about 10 minutes after I won the championship. So for both of them people to be there and witness me winning the championship was definitely something that I thought was meant to be. And it sounds crazy, but I had dreams before the race that exactly what happened at the finish line, and it's pretty amazing that it all worked out like that. And like you say about the character thing, I come across sometimes as people have a lot of different opinions about me, but usually people who really know me know exactly what's going on. And I'm crazy at times, I guess, and I have a very strong opinion on some things sometimes. But it's just things that build character, like you said. I'm not going to be put down by people, and at the same time, I give credit where credit's due. And I think everyone should do the same.
Yes, for sure. And I think it was really cool that on the podium at the GNCC, how you thanked everybody that was a part of your program, I think, from the get-go whenever you made the transition over here to the U.S. Again, that was another great example of the character. But, it all starts I think back whenever you were a kid back home, man, back in Wales. And, that's where your character building started. That's where the dreams all began. And tell us a little bit about that. Tell me, I mean, we know the Jason Thomas that, we know the story, and we'll tell that story again. We'll get to that, I think, before the end of this. But let's talk a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what I guess paved the road to get to where you are now.
Well, I grew up in a tiny village in mid Wales, which basically was located in the middle of a forest. So my dad owned a furniture factory in the village where we lived. So I had bikes, but we never had enough money to go racing. But it wasn't really something that I needed to go and do because we were able to go trail riding, pretty much every weekend up in the forest. And I think that's where I get a lot of my technical skill from, was growing up in that stuff. Even though I never had new bikes or anything like that, it was just always, all be the bikes that I rode up there. So we did that, and then, my dad built a business and was finally able to get enough money to go racing. And we started racing motocross at that point. And I did good at motocross. I rode motocross all the way up to British Championship level, and scored points, and was on a couple of different teams, a Suzuki youth team, which I really learned a lot all the way back from that stuff. Suzuki had a program where if you bought a new Suzuki that year, you were put on a Suzuki rider development program, which basically meant that you were selected to go to 6 training schools with a former British and world champion, which at the time was a guy called Jeremy Watley. And I learned a lot from that. It's the only training school I've ever been on. And then, I rode motocross, like I said, at a pro level. And then one winter, there was a Fast Eddie at the beginning of the year, and I decided I was going to go do that to get myself in shape for the upcoming season. And it turned out I ended up doing really good at that, and there was a Honda team there who approached me to ride for them alongside Paul Edmondson. And that's when it started. It was the beginning of that year, and at the end of that year, Paul Edmondson was coming over to do a GNCC, and asked us if we wanted to travel with him, and we came over, and that was the first time I ever witnessed the GNCC. It was at Crawfordsville.
What year was that?
That was 2005, the first time I came over. I rode a B class, maybe. I rode in the afternoon on a 250F Honda, and actually ended up drowning out in the river down there in the bottom. And a bunch of guys jumped in, and they flipped the bike upside down and took the air filter out of it for me, and got the thing running and got me back out there, and I finished 6th in whatever class I was in. I was reading it before I crashed. Finished 6th, and I thought it was pretty amazing that the fans would do that. You would never get anything like that in England. There would just be people that standing there laughing at you. So I thought that was pretty amazing. At the same time, my dad was walking around the pits and figuring out what was going on there. And, on the way home, he's like, if you really want to make a career out of this sport and you're serious about it, then you need to sacrifice a few things, and you need to go to America. That's where you need to be.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And I really didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I was just a kid at the time, and, I'm like, yeah, I'll go. And we came over and we rode some OMAs, and I did real good at them, and that was all cool. I finished 3rd overall for the year in OMAs. And then at the end of that year, I had a situation with a visa where when I returned to England, I wasn't able to come back, which basically meant that I had to stay in England for a year. And when I was in England for a year and wasn't able to come back to America, I really had a hard time really, realized that, I didn't want to be in England anymore, and I couldn't make a career out of it. And this is really this is really my true passion was racing motorcycles, and I wanted to be the best at it. And in order to be the best, I needed to be in America. So, we did whatever we could to get the visa. Cost a lot of money, and I was able to come back. And when I got back, I actually had to go to Canada first, just because the season was coming around, and I couldn't ride in England. So I went to Canada and raced. Met a lot of cool people in Canada, and then my visa came through. Went to Calgary, got my visa, and then drove from Calgary straight to Yadkinville. And I had a buddy's bike in the trailer. Wasn't even my bike, which ended up racing in Yadkinville, and that's where the GNCC story really began. Was the Yadkinville? I came out and I won on a stock KTM 250, and then was picked up by Fred Andrews, and now here I am on KR4 back on a KTM. And that's pretty much it.
That's it in a nutshell, man. That's really an enlightening story. I mean, because that has a lot of drama in it. I mean, I know you probably, you touched on a little bit of the drama here and there, man, but I mean, just the experiences that you talked about, like your first experience at the Ironman, I was wondering what that was like in comparison. And when you said that in England they would just stand there and laugh at you, that kind of tickled me. I thought that was pretty neat. That had to be, just a wild experience for you to race that first time.
Oh yeah, it was. When I think I was really sick, and the first person that I met when I got to the GNCC was Hollywood, because Hollywood used to help Paul out, and he was, Hollywood's kind of crazy anyway, but coming from a different country and meeting Hollywood with his crazy accent and riding around on a quad, and was really something cool. And I've been friends with Hollywood ever since, and it's cool that we can have that relationship with Hollywood. And I think I was sick, and he handed me a bunch of pills, and he's like, "You need to take this, and you need to take this," and that was something that in England you wouldn't get either. Someone helping someone else out in that way, and then all the meds, going into a Walgreens, just things that I take for granted now, and I'm sure everyone in America takes for granted. Just going into a Walgreens and seeing all the medication you can get, and it's crazy. You wouldn't get that in England. And the same thing for so many things. Going to a Walmart and seeing, one of the things that stands out is the milk. For some reason you guys have about 50 million options for milk. In England you have 3. You have a red cap, a blue cap, and a plain cap. So if you don't like any of them 3, then you better put something else on your cornflakes in the morning. So it's just something crazy. And like you said, there's, in a nutshell, that was the story. But there's so many things that happen along the way. Going to Canada in the middle of January. I'm not sure if anyone's ever been to Calgary in the middle of January, but it's about 20 feet of snow, it seems like, and I was living in a motorhome without a generator. So I pretty much took a suitcase full of clothes with me, and I think I wore them for the first 2 months, and I wore them for 24 hours a day. So just to stay warm, and there are things that people they don't know about me, and I don't really tell the story unless anyone asks about it, because I don't want to people to feel bad for me. But they were things that I had to do, and they're really things that built the character. Like you said, they're just things that built the character along the way. And I wouldn't change any of it. If someone said, "Would you go back to the beginning?" I wouldn't change a thing. It was all things that looking back on it, they're good stories and great experiences, and I wouldn't change a thing.
What about the tattoo? Would you still have gotten the bad boy tattoo?
Yeah, totally. That's just something that was, that was me back then. I wouldn't necessarily go and do it now, but then, yeah. I mean, if I was 21 again or 22 or whatever I was when I got that done, yeah, I'd get it done again. That's just part of me. And if you know me, then you know that that's just something normal for Thomas to do. Yeah. I've always been the one that'll do something crazy just because it gives other people a giggle, or it's a good story, years down the road, and that one definitely is, always going to be a story.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I remember the first time I got a glimpse of it.
Exactly, and that's what it's all about, There's too many, there's too much seriousness within the sport sometimes, and I think it kind of gives off the wrong view to people. They think, I can't talk to that guy because he's uptight and he doesn't talk to anybody. And I like the fact that, some people do say that they can't talk to me, but I mean, sometimes I might come across as being, in the zone or whatever. But pretty much I'm just a normal guy, and I didn't come from anything special, and I don't claim to be anything special. I'm just someone that had a dream, and had the determination to back it up.
Obviously, man, and it comes through with the championship. Well, Jason, I mean, looking back over it all, man, what's the biggest memory that stands out for you? The best memory, I guess, is we'll go best memory and worst memory, other than probably freezing yourself to death in Calgary.
Yeah, the best memory definitely has to be winning Yadkinville, just because nobody had any idea who I was, and I really. At that point, I was really, a young kid, and really, told people, hey, I'm going to win this race today, and nobody believed it, and to go out and win it the way I did was pretty crazy. So that would have to be my best memory. My worst memory, I guess, would have to be, the worst memory would definitely be the second time I got taken back to England for the visa, which was at the beginning of last year. Last year. So 2011. Coming back from England with my wife, who was at that point my fiance. We got engaged in Wales, in the town I grew up in.
Oh.
And coming back through customs, they pulled me in and said, this visa is no longer good. They sent my wife one way, and they sent me back to England on a plane with 2 armed officers either side of me.
Wow.
And I was back there, and a lot of people don't know that story. I got sent back there, and it was the 1st of January I flew back into America, and that day they sent me back, and I didn't get back into America until I think the 1st of March, maybe.
Wow.
It was only a week before the first GNCC. And the same thing, I went to Canada first because I got friends in Canada, and communicating to my attorney in America was easier through Canada. I actually ended up having to fly back to England, get the visa, and then fly back to America, and drove straight to Florida from there. Had a couple of days, or maybe a week on the bike, and rode the first GNCC, and that's how that season started. So,
wow.
Just stuff that a lot of people probably don't know, but that was definitely the lowest point in my career.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah,
I never heard that. Never knew anything about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't know about that. It's tough with a visa because some things you can't show for whatever reason. Some things you can talk about with them, and with all the internet and stuff, things go around, and that's all they do anymore. They just search on the internet and see what's been going on, and all that stuff ended up working out in the end. And it's just something that I guess I just had to. The same thing, beginning of the season, a week before the season, wasn't really something that I could talk about because I was focused on trying to win races.
Right.
So it was something that was has just gone by. And there's so many things like that, with the career. Things go past. They go by so fast that you don't really get a chance to really experience them. Like all the places I've been, different countries and different states and all that stuff. I look back and I think about it. I'm like, I've been to New York, but I've never been to New York City. And I went to Germany, but I really didn't see anything other than the countryside riding around on the motorcycle. I didn't go to Berlin or anything like that. So, even England, 2 years ago when I went back to England, my wife said I'd like to go to London, and I'd never been to London, and it's only an hour and a half away from my house. But they're just things that you don't do. I guess
you've never been to London. You'd never been to...
I'd been to London, but I'd never been to things that Americans would associate with London, like Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, and just traveling around. And the same in Wales. We went to a bunch of castles, and same in Scotland. Just went and saw things that they're things that tourists go and see, but they're things that people that live there, I guess, they just take for granted. They never go and witness them for themselves.
Well, how was that experience for you to get to see your homeland in a different light?
It was expensive. No, I mean it was cool. It was something that it was really awesome. We got engaged and we got and we got to Wales, and then we went and saw all these things together. So it was kind of like, it was a really cool experience, and we got to see pretty much everything there was to see in Wales, Scotland, and England. The only thing we didn't go and see was Ireland. So we'll get to go and see that stuff one day, I'm sure. But it was a great experience, and that was just England. There's so many other things, so many other places I've been. Like I said, it just goes by so fast that you don't really have a chance to take it all in.
I bet. And I can imagine each race season's like that, man. I mean, you had Caleb Russell to battle with there for a while. You had Stu Baylor, and shoot, man, I mean, there's so many names that you've had to battle with over the last few years, it isn't even funny.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guys. Even from the first one at Yadkinville, it was Thad Duvall then, and Justin Williamson, and then it was Caleb and Corey, and then it was Stu and Andrew. So, I mean, like I said, there's always like 2 new guys that come in every year, it seems like, and I've been around for all of them guys, and every one of them were great riders and have moved on, and the best riders in the country. And like Stu this year, I think before his injury, I would probably put Stu up there as one of the best riders in the world at that point, because he really was. He's winning national enduros, he's winning GNCCs, he's up in the overall in GNCCs, and he was really riding great. And I hope he gets that form back and is able to transfer it into XC1 like Caleb has. And I'm privileged to have been able to race alongside great riders like that.
Wow, again, another great display of character and humbleness, man. I'm really surprised at how humble you are, given, the things that you've been through. There's I mean, a lot, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but sometimes the English can come off a little cocky and a little abrasive to the American public sometimes, and it may not be because they're like that. It just might be. But, I mean, in reality, man, I mean, I don't feel that at all. I mean, I think you're one of the most humblest, down-to-earth people that I've probably ever met, man, and I think that's cool. I think that is great.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes I say stuff and I get a negative response from it, and I'm not sure if it's because of the English accent or because of the way I worded it. My wife says I word things wrong, and they come across in a different way than the way I mean them, and maybe that's what it is. But like I said, I'm not that guy at all, and if I think people deserve respect for what they do, and I hope that people give me respect in return, and I don't have any grudges against anybody, and like I said, all them riders are great riders, and that's why I came to America, was to race against the best riders in the world, and I do believe that the GNCC guys or guys in America are the best riders in the world at what they do, and I am privileged to be a part of it and a part of GNCCs, and all the people that help support the GNCCs and all the stuff that goes with it.
Well, buddy, we're privileged to have you a part of it. I can tell you that right now, and I thank you for having that dream and living that dream, because vicariously, in a way, I have lived it with you, man. Yeah, that's for sure. You've been there every step of the way, and that's cool. And the living the dream thing. At the moment, it probably seems to a lot of guys like the industry's down and whatever. But at the end of the day, we didn't start racing dirt bikes to make $1 million. We race them because we love to ride dirt bikes, and little kids out there or families out there who are wondering, should they keep going, should they keep doing it? I definitely, say, yeah, you should definitely keep doing it and achieve your dreams, and dreams are things that you can't buy. It doesn't matter how much money you make, you're not going to be able to buy the dreams that you can realize racing dirt bikes, and racing the GNCC series. Well, that's great. That is, wow. I love the way you put it out there, and it is about the heart, and I think your heart shows through in this, and your passion for racing and being a part of something so big. And again, I say thanks, and I guess now's as good a time as any to go ahead and wrap things up, Jason. It's been a great time talking with you today and getting to know you better. And there's so much more that we could dig into, and we could keep people's ears bent for a while. But we've got more Two Wheel Tuesdays to come up, I'm sure, in the future. So we'll get you on part of that, and maybe get one or two particular stories we can talk about in that particular time. But before we go, anything that you want to pass along, any parting shots that you want to send out to the listening audience?
No, I don't know. I guess I've said everything. I guess just to the kids out there is to always chase your dreams and never give up on what you believe in, even when people don't believe in you. You have the ability to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. So keep on shredding, I guess.
There you go. Now, at UK7, is that your Twitter name?
At UK__7.
_7.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Jason, just plain old Jason Thomas on Facebook?
Jason Thomas on Facebook. And then my website is www.jasonthomasracing.com.
That is awesome. Well, again, we thank you for being a part of the show today, and we also say thanks to our friends at Impact Solutions, your factory-authorized service center for Elko suspension at 985 Harris Highway in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Phone them up, 304-863-0025. Also, you can catch up on the World Wide Web at impactsolutionsatv.com. And thanks also to Ian and the folks over at SSI Decals, making things look really sharp, and you can go online there at SSIDecals.com and see exactly what we're talking about. Well, that'll do it for this Deuce Day, Two Wheel Tuesday, and Quad Radio USA. For Jason Thomas, the newly crowned XC2 Pro Lights GNCC Bikes Champ, I'm Rodney Tomlin. This is Quad Radio.